My name is Patricia Lewis. I'm 69 years old, retired now. I used to be a school principal for over 3 decades, and I'd like to think I was good at it. Firm, fair, the kind of leader teachers respected and kids didn't fear. I live in Charleston, South Carolina. These days, I stay in the old carriage house behind the main family home, the one my late husband, Gerald, left behind. He passed 17 years ago. Heart attack. 1 minute he was mowing the lawn, and the next he was gone. I was 52. Since then, I've done what I thought was right. I stayed close. I helped my only child, Richard, raise his boys after his wife passed from breast cancer 4 years ago. I picked the boys up from school, made dinner when he worked late, paid for summer camps when things got tight. I kept everything running in the background while he rebuilt his life. I didn't ask for much. A thank you once in a while would have been nice, but I told myself love didn't need applause. Then came Sunday. Richard had invited me to brunch at the house. Nothing unusual. But this time it was different. His new fiancé's family was visiting for the first time. They came in smiling, southern and sweet, like they'd practiced. Her name is Noelle. She's young, maybe early 40s. Wears a lot of white, even though she has a dog and 2 boys from a previous marriage. The table was set beautifully. I'll give them that. Fresh flowers, cloth napkins, fruit in little glass bowls. Noelle served mimosas, though I stuck to tea. I had brought my blueberry scones, as I always do. Noelle took them and set them aside like they were store-bought muffins. Her parents, Annette and Roy, talked about their retirement in Florida. Someone mentioned golf. Richard laughed a little louder than usual. The whole thing felt like a performance. Then came the moment I won't forget. We were discussing the upcoming wedding. Noelle said they might do something small in Asheville, maybe a vineyard or a lodge in the mountains. I asked gently if the boys, my grandsons, would be in the wedding party. Richard looked at me, calm as anything, and said, "Mom, we're just trying to be nice including you. Don't think you matter in all of this." The room went quiet. Noelle let out a tiny, awkward laugh and reached for more orange juice. Her mother blinked fast and stared at her plate. No one said a word. I felt my face flush hot. I wanted to believe I misheard him, but I didn't. He didn't stutter. He didn't backtrack. He just looked at me like I was a guest who'd overstayed her welcome. So I nodded. I took a sip of my lukewarm tea, and I said, "Well, I think I'll go." No one protested. I stood, picked up my purse, and walked out the back door. Left my scones on the counter. No one followed me to the driveway. I sat in my car for a moment before starting it, my hands resting on the steering wheel. I wasn't angry yet. I was just hollow, like someone had cut me loose from a rope I didn't even know I'd been hanging on. The drive back to the carriage house was short. The oak trees lining the road were covered in Spanish moss, and for a moment, I just watched them sway. I'd driven this road so many times, dropping off soup, picking up soccer cleats, running to the store when Richard forgot the milk. Now, I wondered if any of it had mattered. Back inside my little house, I kicked off my shoes and sat on the couch. My teacup still had lipstick on the rim. I'd barely touched it. That sentence played in my head like a broken record. Don't think you matter. I thought of all the nights I stayed up helping with homework. The thousands I spent on private school and groceries. The hours spent scrubbing mud out of the boys' cleats after games. The time I drove 4 hours to pick Richard up when his car broke down. I thought I mattered. I really did. Not because I expected praise or medals, but because I showed up. Isn't that what matters? Showing up. I sat there in silence for a long time. I didn't cry, not yet. I just sat still. Something in me shifted that day. Not all at once. It was more like a quiet cracking sound inside my chest. Not loud, but permanent. That's when I knew this wasn't just a careless sentence. This was how he saw me. I was the woman in the corner of the photo, the afterthought, the background. And if I didn't do something, if I didn't change how I let people treat me, it was never going to get better. He was right about one thing. They were being nice, including me. But nice isn't the same as kind. And it sure isn't the same as love. What he didn't know was I still had some say in what happened next. And I was about to remind him of that, not with yelling, not with tears, with decisions. Because sometimes the strongest thing a woman can do is quietly walk away from the table where she's no longer welcome. Even if that table has her name on the silverware, even if her blood is in the room. Have you ever been dismissed by your own child or made to feel invisible by family? Tell me in the comments. I want to hear your voice. And if you're still watching, you're not alone. Stick around. This story is just getting started. Richard was just 10 years old when his father died. Gerald had gone out to mow the lawn on a Saturday morning. He'd had a big breakfast, bacon, eggs, and toast, the works. He kissed my cheek on the way out and said he'd be back in by noon. But he never came back in. A neighbor found him lying on the grass, still holding the handle of the mower. Massive heart attack. The doctors said he probably didn't feel a thing. I felt everything. I had just turned 52, and suddenly I was a widow with a fourth grader and a mortgage. There was no big life insurance policy. Gerald had started the paperwork, but hadn't finished it. We had savings, but not enough to last. So I pulled myself together and got to work. I took a second job tutoring kids in the evenings. During the day, I ran my elementary school like usual. I graded papers at midnight and packed lunches at 5. I didn't have time to cry. I raised Richard the best I could. He was always smart, always polite, but a little guarded. I guess losing his dad so young made him grow up faster. When it was time for college, he got into Georgia Tech. We couldn't afford it, but I made it work. I took out a parent loan. I sold some of Gerald's old tools and canceled my dental plan. I told him not to worry. That's what mothers do. He finished in 4 years and got hired right away. Married a woman named Lisa. She was sweet, quiet, a good mom. They had 2 boys, and for a while, things felt steady again. Then Lisa got sick. At first, we thought it was stress. She was tired all the time. Then came the weight loss. By the time the doctors gave it a name, it was already stage 3. She was gone in under a year. I moved into the carriage house full-time so I could help with the kids. Richard was drowning, trying to work, take care of the boys, pay for everything. So I stepped in. I picked up the boys after school, made dinner most nights, handled bedtime routines. I helped with homework and stayed up with fevers. When money got tight, I didn't wait to be asked. I paid for their school supplies, their dental visits, even the electric bill one winter when Richard fell behind. I pulled from my retirement to cover the private school tuition when they both got in. I figured I had time to rebuild. Richard always said, "Thanks, Mom," but never in a way that stuck. It felt more like a reflex than real gratitude. I didn't need praise. I just wanted to be treated like I mattered. Instead, I was the extra set of hands, the babysitter, the backup. When the boys were little, they called me Granny Pat. I loved that. But as they got older, I became just Grandma, then just her, like I was part of the furniture. I made myself useful. That's what I knew how to do. I fixed dripping faucets. I baked birthday cakes. I filled in every gap without being asked. Noelle came into the picture 2 years ago. I stayed out of it. I didn't want to meddle. I tried to be welcoming. I bought her flowers on her birthday and helped her clean out the garage when she moved in. But I noticed the shift. Suddenly, my opinion was never needed. If I offered advice, it was met with a polite nod and ignored. I was never consulted about vacations, school decisions, or even the remodel that blocked the path between my house and theirs. One day, I walked into the kitchen and found they had changed the locks. No one told me. I had to knock to come in. They said it was for security, but I knew what it really meant. Even though I was living right there, I had become a guest in my own family. I was careful not to complain. I didn't want to be the bitter mother-in-law or the nagging grandma. I told myself I was lucky to be nearby, to see the boys grow up. But deep down, I started to feel something I hadn't let myself admit. Invisible. It crept in quietly, not all at once, but moment by moment. The way they skipped telling me about school concerts. The time I found out about Noelle's birthday party from Facebook photos. I started keeping my thoughts to myself. They didn't want them anyway. What they wanted was my help, my time, my money, but not me. I used to think love meant being needed, but I was beginning to see that I had confused usefulness with love. And at that brunch, when Richard said I didn't matter, it was like someone flipped a light on in a dark room I'd been sitting in for years. I'd been present at every turn, giving everything I had. And still, I was nothing more than background. They saw me as support staff, not family. And once you see that clearly, you can't unsee it. What they didn't realize was that I wasn't broke. I wasn't weak. And I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. Looking back, it didn't happen all at once. There was no single moment where I stopped mattering. It was slow, like a tide pulling back, 1 inch at a time. The first sign came the year after Lisa passed. Richard had been juggling a lot, and I understood. He started making little changes around the house. Nothing major at first, just shifting furniture, rearranging schedules. I told myself it was his way of coping. Then I noticed I wasn't being asked anymore. He bought a new SUV without a word to me. I only found out when the dealership called and asked me to sign for a document. Turns out he'd used the family trust address and my name was still on the mail. When I asked about it, he said, "Oh, it was just easier to handle it myself. Didn't want to bother you." I believed him. Then came the house remodel. I came home one day to see a construction crew unloading materials. They were extending the kitchen and adding a sunroom. No one had told me. I asked Richard about it, and he said, "It's nothing big, Mom. We're just upgrading a bit." I'd been living in the carriage house full-time by then. I thought I was part of the home, but they were building a whole new space without ever asking if I was okay with it. Then came the legal paperwork. One evening, Richard came into the carriage house with a folder, said it was just to clean up the family documents, keep everything in order. He said, "We're updating the property trust, just streamlining things. You'll still be part of it, but we're simplifying the structure for tax reasons." I trusted him. He was my son. I signed where he pointed. Later, I found out my name had been removed as a trustee. My share of the land wasn't in writing anymore. When I brought it up months later, he brushed it off. "It's just legal terms, Mom. Nothing's changed in practice." But everything had changed. From that point on, I wasn't told when bills were paid or when taxes were due. The house, the very place where I raised him, was no longer mine in any way. Still, I cooked dinner twice a week. I picked up the boys, ironed school shirts, paid for haircuts when they came in asking last minute. They always said, "Thanks," but no one looked me in the eye when they said it. Then there was Noelle. She moved in fast, and I kept my distance. I knew better than to crowd, but I noticed how things shifted. Suddenly, the boys had new routines, and I wasn't part of them. I wasn't told when school meetings were happening. The boys stopped asking me for help with projects. One Saturday morning, I walked into the main house with a casserole, only to find a birthday party going on. Balloons, cake, kids running everywhere. No one had told me. Richard said later, "It was just a quick thing Noel threw together. I didn't think you'd want to be surrounded by that kind of chaos. He didn't think I'd want to be at my grandson's birthday party. I started making myself smaller, hoping to avoid becoming a problem. I thought if I just stayed useful, they'd come back around. But that didn't happen. Noel once told me, half joking, half not, you should open a cleaning business, Patricia. You're a machine." It was meant as a compliment, but it didn't feel like one. Even the boys picked up on it. One day, the youngest one, Adam, asked me, "Grandma, are you like the maid?" I laughed at the time, but I went to bed early that night. The final nudge came a few months before the brunch. I got a letter from the city about the property tax on the back lot where my carriage house sits. It was addressed to me. Confused, I called the assessor's office. The woman on the phone said my name was still listed as the legal owner of that parcel. I was surprised. I thought everything had been merged when I signed those documents Richard gave me. Turns out that part was never transferred. It had been overlooked. So, while I'd been removed from every decision, every bill, every plan, they had left one part behind. The part that still belonged to me. At the time, I didn't think much of it. But now, after that brunch, I saw it clearly. They had slowly edged me out of every part of the home, the family, the decision-making, and I had let them, not because I was weak, but because I believed I was doing what was right. And every time they made a change without me, I found a way to excuse it. They're busy. I don't want to be a burden. It's just how families work these days. But the truth is, I had been pushed out, gently, quietly, completely, until all I was left with was a small space behind the house and a job no one wanted to pay me for. I'd become the help. And when Richard said those words at brunch, "Don't think you matter," it wasn't a surprise. It was a confirmation. I just hadn't wanted to admit it before. Now, I couldn't ignore it, and I didn't plan to. When I got back to the carriage house after that brunch, the silence followed me in like a shadow. I set down my purse and stood in the kitchen, staring at the counter. My blueberry scones were still in the box. No one had touched them, not even out of politeness. I looked at the clock, still early afternoon. I waited, thinking maybe Richard would call. Maybe he'd say it came out wrong. Maybe Noel would text to smooth things over. Nothing. I made a cup of tea, sat in my armchair, stared at the walls. By the time the sun dipped behind the trees, the truth had settled into me like weight. There would be no apology. I wasn't waiting for one because I wanted to hear the words. I was waiting for proof that I still meant something, that I was still part of this family, not just someone they kept around out of convenience. And when the phone stayed silent, it confirmed what I already knew. I cried that night, not a loud, dramatic kind of crying, just quiet, steady tears that came without warning and wouldn't stop. I cried because I finally accepted what I'd been avoiding for years. I didn't belong in their world anymore. That hurt more than the words at brunch. It was never really about what Richard said. It was about everything that led up to it. I'd spent my whole adult life building around others. Around Gerald. Around Richard. Around the boys. And now there wasn't a single corner left that felt like it was mine. After a long shower, I sat at the dining table with my laptop and pulled out the files I'd kept tucked away. Not because I was suspicious. I'm just the kind of person who likes to keep records, receipts, tax statements, property paperwork, bank letters. I opened the folder labeled Carriage House, Land Deed. That tiny plot of land had been gifted to me by Gerald's father before he passed. We always called it Pat's Place as a joke back when it was just a shed surrounded by oaks. After Gerald died, I spent years slowly turning it into a livable home. I fixed it up with my own savings. New plumbing, real insulation, added a proper roof. When Richard suggested consolidating everything into a family trust, I'd assumed it had already been absorbed. But it hadn't. There it was, plain as day. The parcel was still in my name. Gerald's father had filed the transfer properly back in 1994. Richard never touched it. I checked the property tax records next. Surprisingly, my name was still listed as the secondary contact on the main house. That meant I was still tied to the accounts covering utilities and annual taxes. I hadn't paid them in years. Richard had taken over that part. But the system still saw me as a stakeholder. I sat back and stared at the screen. All this time, I'd been treated like a guest on my own land. But legally, I wasn't a guest at all. The carriage house was mine. The land under it, mine. And part of the main property was still connected to me financially. They'd pushed me out emotionally, but they hadn't finished the job on paper. I felt something shift again. Not anger, not spite. Something quieter, like a wire finally snapping after being pulled too tight. I opened a fresh notebook and started writing. Not a letter, a plan. I made a list of everything I was still responsible for. Every financial tie, every record with my name on it. I wrote down steps. Call the assessor's office. Confirm what I own and what I don't. Contact a lawyer. Ask about my rights. Quietly. Open a private account, separate from the family's mess. End all automatic contributions. No more quiet payments for their bills. Secure my assets, just in case they try to fight back. I wasn't doing this to make anyone pay. I was doing it because I had nothing left to lose and everything to reclaim. That night, I packed up a few things I hadn't used in years. I moved some files to a lockbox and hid the key. I deleted the shared calendar app Noel insisted the family use. I didn't sleep much, but for the first time in months, I didn't feel stuck. I felt awake. In the morning, I went for a walk around the back lot, the parcel Gerald's father gave me. I stood by the big oak tree, where we'd once hung a swing for Richard. This land was still mine, and now it was going to stay that way. They could have had my time, my care, my support, but when they made it clear that none of it mattered, they gave me permission to step away. This wasn't about getting even. This was about getting right with myself. I went back inside, made fresh coffee, and started calling names from the list I'd written the night before. It was time to take back what I'd quietly given away, piece by piece. If this moment hits close to home, tap the like button so YouTube knows stories like this matter. And stay with me. What happens next will surprise you. I didn't tell anyone what I was doing at first. I wanted to move quietly. No drama. No back and forth. I called my old friend Diane the next morning. We used to teach together years ago. She was the assistant principal before she retired and went back to school to get her law degree. She'd been doing estate planning ever since. She answered on the first ring. "You okay?" she asked. "Not really," I said. "I need to know where I stand legally, and I need someone I trust to help me sort it out." She met me for coffee that same afternoon. I brought copies of everything: deeds, tax records, account statements. She flipped through them, reading slowly, lips pressed tight. After a while, she looked up and said, "You've got more power here than you think, Pat." Turns out, I still had legal claim to the entire parcel the carriage house sat on. And because Richard had never finished changing over the property tax records, I was still part owner in the eyes of the city. And most of the utility accounts, electric, water, and even the waste management service, still had me listed as the co-signer. He'd never updated them. I didn't say much. I just nodded. "I can draft letters," she said. "Something formal, clear. You don't need to yell to make a statement." That line stayed with me. You don't need to yell to make a statement. That same week, I called Mr. Morrison, the financial advisor I'd been using since Gerald passed. He's in his late 70s now, but still sharp as ever. I told him I wanted to separate my accounts, freeze access, and close any automatic payments tied to Richard's household. He asked gently, "Are you sure this is what you want to do?" "I've never been more sure of anything," I said. He didn't question it again. Within 5 days, everything was shifted. My retirement fund was secured. A separate trust was created in my name for the property I still owned. The old joint accounts were either shut down or updated to reflect new ownership. I also called a surveyor. A local man, Mr. Dale, came out 2 days later to walk the lot with me. I showed him where the old fence used to be, back when Gerald's dad had marked off the line with white wooden posts. "I want to put a boundary back up," I told him. "Privacy fencing. Simple, neat." He nodded, took his measurements, and said he could start the following week. By that Friday, I drafted a formal letter, with Diane's help, informing Richard that I was stepping back from all shared responsibilities. I kept it short. No more access to my bank accounts. No more coverage of their property taxes. No more shared utilities. No more caretaking. It wasn't angry. It was business. I dropped the envelope in their mailbox myself. Then I started packing. Not everything, just the things I needed. I found a 1-bedroom apartment on the 2nd floor of an old brick building in Charleston's historic district. Nothing fancy, but clean, bright, and quiet. The rent was reasonable, and I could walk to the bookstore and the park. I didn't tell anyone I was moving. I arranged for the carriage house to be listed as a short-term rental. A friend from my book club connected me with someone who helped turn properties into Airbnbs. We cleaned it up, staged it with some fresh linens and decor, and took photos. Within 72 hours, I had my first booking. By Sunday, I was gone. I left a note on the kitchen counter, simple and polite. "Please forward any mail that comes in. I'll be in touch when necessary. All utilities and property matters are now your full responsibility." And that was it. I waited for the reaction. Richard didn't call that day, but I saw 2 missed calls Monday morning. He texted once, asking if everything was okay. I didn't respond. Noelle texted too. "Hey Patricia, did we do something? Please let us know." I let that one sit unread. They were expecting the old me, the one who always came when called, who smoothed things over, who swallowed pride for the sake of peace. But I wasn't that woman anymore. By Tuesday, the texts got more direct. "Mom, what's going on? Did you cancel the electric bill? Why is the back lot fenced off?" I kept my phone on silent. For the first time in a long while, I had space. Space to think. To sleep without listening for footsteps or alarms. To cook dinner at my own pace. To sit by the window with a book and finish it in one sitting. I took long walks around the neighborhood, stopped at little cafes I'd never noticed, sat on park benches, and watched the world move. And I didn't feel guilty, because for years I'd given everything I had, time, energy, money, love, and been treated like a shadow. Now, I was stepping into the light. I wasn't running away. I was walking toward myself. Let them wonder. I wasn't hiding. I was rebuilding. Have you ever taken your power back without raising your voice? Let's share how silence can speak louder than shouting. Drop a comment if you've had to do that. By the 2nd week, things started shifting. The texts came faster, the tone different. "Mom, the trash didn't get picked up. Did something happen with the account?" A day later, "Why isn't the landscaper coming anymore? He says the contract isn't valid." And then, the city sent a notice about the property taxes. "Did you forget to pay your part?" I didn't answer any of them. I wasn't being cruel. I was being clear. For years, I handled things behind the scenes. Now, they were seeing how many moving parts there really were, and how much of it I'd been quietly managing. One morning, a loud knock came at the door of my new apartment. It was Richard. He looked tired, not in a sick way, just overwhelmed, a bit thinner, a little frayed around the edges. "Can we talk?" he asked. I let him in, sat across from him at the dining table. He didn't waste time. "Mom, you're overreacting. We didn't mean it like that." I just looked at him, let the words settle. He went on. "That brunch, it was awkward. We were trying to impress Noelle's parents. I shouldn't have said what I said, but, I didn't mean it that way." "Maybe not," I said, "but you said it, and I believed you." He leaned back, like he wasn't expecting that. "I've done everything I could to be there for you," I said. When Lisa passed, I stepped in. When the boys needed school fees, I paid them. Groceries, utilities, doctor visits. I covered them because I wanted to, but I never expected to be spoken to like I was in the way. Richard shifted in his seat. "I know, but we were under pressure. You know how family can be." I nodded. "Yes, I do." He rubbed his face and let out a long breath. "So what now? You've pulled the plug on everything. The taxes, the landscaper, even the cleaning lady." "I've handed everything back," I said. "You're in charge now. Fully." "What about the carriage house?" he asked. "We had plans for that space. The boys were going to use it when they got older." "It's mine," I said calmly. "Legally, fully. It was given to me before you even had children." "You're renting it out?" "Yes." "To strangers?" "To paying guests," I said. He was quiet for a minute. Then, "What are you trying to prove?" "I'm not trying to prove anything," I answered. "I'm just tired of being treated like a placeholder. If I matter so little that I'm not even part of family conversations, then it's time I start acting like an outsider, with boundaries." "You're still my mother," he said, voice low. "Yes," I replied, "but that doesn't mean I owe you my life." He stood up. "I just didn't think you were serious." "I'm serious," I said. He didn't argue again, just nodded and left. The next few days were quiet. No calls, no texts. Then I got one from Noelle. "Patricia, I think we got off on the wrong foot. I know Richard didn't mean what he said. Can we talk?" I didn't reply. She followed up with, "The boys miss you." That one stung, but I let it sit. I wasn't trying to punish anyone. I just needed them to understand that words carry weight, and silence even more. A week later, I got a knock from the surveyor. The new privacy fence was complete. He walked me through it. Clean lines, new gate, proper signage. My lot, marked off clearly. When I went back inside, I noticed something else. Peace. I hadn't felt that in a long time. No last-minute grocery runs. No phone calls asking me to come babysit just for an hour. No passive-aggressive comments. Just my space. That weekend, I hosted my first Airbnb guest. A retired couple from North Carolina visiting Charleston for their anniversary. They left a handwritten note. "Your place is lovely, quiet, peaceful. Thank you for sharing your space with us." It made me smile. Strangers had shown more appreciation in 2 days than my family had in years. I didn't feel bitter, just clear. The boys would always have a place in my heart. But now I finally had a place of my own, physically, emotionally, and legally. Richard would figure out how to run his household. He was a grown man with a good job and a capable partner. It was time for him to lead his life, and time for me to live mine. I never realized how much noise I'd been living with until it stopped. Not the kind that comes from televisions or slammed doors. The kind that lives in your chest. That quiet, constant feeling that you're always on call, always in the background, always waiting for the next request. Once I moved out and cut the strings, that feeling left. At first, I didn't know what to do with the space. My days used to be filled with errands, chores, and worrying about everyone else. Now, the calendar was blank. So, I filled it with myself. I joined a book club that met at the library downtown. Just 6 women, all over 60. We read a mix of fiction and memoirs, and the conversations weren't just about books. We talked about everything: marriages, regrets, what we'd do differently if we had the chance. One afternoon, after we read a novel about a widow who starts over in a new city, one of the women said, we don't get enough credit for starting over at our age. People think we're just stuck in our ways. I smiled because I knew exactly what she meant. I also started volunteering once a week, teaching basic financial literacy to widows and older women going through divorce. Some had never written a check before. Others had no idea what a credit score meant. We met in a church basement with coffee and cookies. I showed them how to read statements, set up online banking, understand insurance. It wasn't glamorous work, but it felt good. I realized I still had something valuable to give, but now I was giving it where it was appreciated. I didn't talk much about Richard or the boys. Not because I was angry. I just didn't want every conversation to circle back to them. For the first time in decades, I was living as Patricia, not Richard's mom, not Grandma Pat, not the helper. Just me. I went to the farmer's market on Saturdays, bought fresh bread and flowers, walked the cobblestone streets, and sat on benches with a book in my bag, even if I never opened it. My apartment was quiet, but it wasn't lonely. I kept the carriage house running as a rental. It stayed booked most weekends, and I earned enough to cover my rent, and then some. It gave me options, and that gave me peace. A few months passed. Then, one sunny afternoon, I heard a knock at my apartment door. It was my granddaughter, Leah, the older one, 13 now, taller than I remembered. "Grandma," she said. "Hi." I stepped back and let her in. She sat at the table, looking a little nervous. "I took the bus," she said. "Dad doesn't know I'm here." I poured her a glass of lemonade and sat down. She looked around my small apartment. "It's cute. Smells like cinnamon." We sat in silence for a few minutes. Then she said it. "Why don't you come over anymore?" I looked at her. She wasn't being dramatic or accusatory. She just wanted to understand. "I needed space," I said. "Grown-up things got complicated. But I never stopped loving you." She blinked fast. "I know. I miss you." That was the moment I knew I hadn't lost everything. I reached across the table and took her hand. "I miss you too, sweet girl." She came back the next week, this time with a box of cookies. We played a card game I'd kept in the kitchen drawer and talked about her school projects. A slow, quiet shift began. Richard didn't call, but Leah kept coming. Then Adam came one Saturday, said he'd heard about the cookies and didn't want to be left out. A few weeks later, I was invited to watch Leah's choir concert. I went, sat in the back, and left without trying to make it more than it was. Then one Sunday morning, Richard texted, "We're having dinner next week. Just the family. You're welcome if you'd like to come." No apologies. No big speech. Just an invitation. I stared at the screen for a long time before replying. "Thank you. I'll think about it." Because now, things were on my terms. If I went, it would be because I chose to, because I wanted to, not because it was expected. I still had boundaries. I still had space. But slowly, the walls weren't as high. Letting go of my place in their house had given me something I didn't know I needed. A new place in the world. And as much as I missed the easy parts of being close, I was proud of the life I was building. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. And I mattered. Almost a full year had passed since that brunch. The seasons had rolled by, one after the other, and my life had changed in small, steady ways. I wasn't waiting on an apology anymore. I wasn't checking my phone for updates or wondering if I'd be invited to family events. I had peace. But peace doesn't mean the past disappears. It just means you stop letting it control the present. So I decided to host brunch. Just me, Richard, and the kids. I didn't invite Noelle. Not because I was angry, but because this needed to be between us. Mother, son, and grandchildren. A clean table, open chairs, and space for honesty. I made waffles and eggs, set the table with mismatched plates I'd collected from thrift stores, and put out the good syrup I saved for company. Leah and Adam arrived first. They helped carry juice and cut fruit. Richard showed up 10 minutes later, a little unsure, holding a store-bought pie and flowers. "Hi, Mom," he said. "Hi." I nodded, taking the flowers and setting them in a jar. We ate. We chatted lightly about school and weather and books. The kids carried the conversation for a while, and I let them. Then, after the plates were cleared and the kids wandered into the living room to play cards, it was just Richard and me at the table. He reached for his glass, cleared his throat, then said, "I think I lost my way." He didn't look at me right away, just stared at his hands. I got caught up in trying to move forward. New house plans, a new relationship, new routines. I told myself I was doing the best I could. But the truth is, I left you out of things that mattered, things you helped make possible. I waited, let him speak. I didn't realize how much you were holding until you stopped holding it. He finally looked up. His eyes were tired, but clear. "I didn't mean to make you feel like you didn't matter. But I know that doesn't change the fact that I did." There was no defense, no list of reasons, just words, real ones. I let that sit for a moment. Then I said, "It wasn't just what you said that day. It was everything before it. I let myself shrink for years, hoping you'd notice. You didn't. And that's on me too." He nodded. "I'd like to rebuild," he said quietly. "If you'll let me. I want the kids to know you the way I used to. And I want to know this version of you too, the one who drew the line." I smiled. "This version has rules." "I figured," he said. "We didn't hug. We didn't cry. We just sat with it, two people finally saying what needed to be said." The kids came back in, and the moment passed, but it stayed with me. Later that evening, after they left, I cleaned the kitchen slowly. Not because it needed it, just because I wanted the quiet time to settle my thoughts. That conversation didn't erase the hurt. It didn't make everything perfect again, but it gave us a new place to begin. And this time, I'd be walking in with my eyes wide open, my voice steady, and my place clearly marked. No more background role. No more silent support. If I was going to be part of the family, it would be as myself, fully, honestly, and with boundaries. And I was okay with that. To you watching this, if you've ever been told out loud or through someone's actions that you don't matter, let me say this. You do. You matter. Even if your kindness is taken for granted. Even if your efforts are brushed off. Even if your family forgets all that you've done. Sometimes walking away isn't about anger. It's about self-respect. It's how you teach others where you begin and where you end. I know how hard it is to take that first step, to stop shrinking, to stop fixing. But it's not too late. You're not alone. Have you ever had to step away from family just to find your voice again, to rebuild yourself outside the roles they put you in? I'd love to hear your story in the comments. Let's talk. Let's support each other. And if this story meant something to you, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. It helps more than you know, and it tells YouTube that stories like this matter too. Until next time.